I've got news for you.
Welcome to Citizen View,
where citizens come to talk.
So Andy, we're looking forward to Lucky 13, 2013 in just a few short days. Let's look back at the high five. Let's high five each other about the top stories 2012.
The top 5 political stories of 2012. Well, number 1 has to be Obama and President Obama's re-election as the incumbent president.
It appears for kids in this lifetime that the presidential term is 8 years, not 4. Everyone seems to win their re-election. What seems to be happening from my perspective, however, is that sitting presidents are able to tap into that narrative, the narrative of the people.
Well, Obama is sometimes best, no matter whether he's on the campaign trail or pushing for policy, out with the people, using that bully pulpit, out there speaking directly to the people, challenging them, sometimes vilifying his opponents. And it works for him, and it works for presidents usually. They don't call it the bully pulpit for nothing.
Say, Andy, another story that we're high-fiving about in 2012 is the Supreme Court, an institution that oftentimes, at least they hope to be under the radar. This Supreme Court, the Roberts Court this year, has flown way above the radar.
Well, we know the court tends to frown upon getting involved in political issues, but the Supreme Court is there to resolve conflicts amongst the law. And many times those conflicts in the law are political. So we saw the Supreme Court getting smack dab in the middle of the most political case we've had in a generation about the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare.
And then this year, the court has agreed to hear cases on affirmative action, more cases on immigration, human rights, and of course the big one, same-sex marriage. Andy, the Supreme Court was a big story in 2012. Looks like there'll be an even bigger story in 2013. Say, Andy, another story what we're looking at is Congress, and what we're seeing now is a divided Congress. It tells us a lot about partisanship in America.
Well, the trend since the late 1960s is divided government, where the president is one party and at least one of the other chambers of Congress is controlled by the opposition. And since 2010, Obama's had to work with a Republican House of Representatives. And we commonly see gridlock when that happens. We commonly see that there isn't compromise between the two parties over big issues, whether it's immigration or whether it's about the budget debt and the national debt and how to get the budget deficit down, not just for next year, but for the next 20 years.
I'll tell you what's memorable for me about this Congress, Andy, is really the resurgence of political parties. Everyone's talked for years about how political parties have grown weaker, but if you look at our Congress and you look at party discipline and partisan votes, political parties are back. Say, speaking of back, in 2012 election, Andy, just looking at the demographics, there are a lot of points that are worth noting, not the least of which is the Latino vote.
Well, we know that the party that can bring more factions together under their tent, otherwise known as the Big Tent, tends to win elections. And this is where Obama's been so good, bringing labor together with African Americans, with the gay rights votes, and now with Hispanic and young voters. It really seems to be a formidable coalition of interest groups that Madison talked about in Federalist 10.
Yeah, let's really highlight that youth vote, Andy. Many thought Romney, even to the late hours of election night, thought Romney would be able to pull it out. And in the end, it may have been that Latino vote and the youth vote, the young people that came out in big numbers, at least as big as they were in 2008. Andy, finally, as we high-five each other here, looking back to 2012, I'll tell you a topic that's come back on the ledger, something we haven't talked a whole lot about in recent years. Federalism, states' rights, is a buzz right now.
We know that American politics has often, ever since the beginning, been dominated by that question of how strong should the central government be and how much latitude should state and local governments have to create policy. Well, we're seeing it in full force these days with states like Washington State and Colorado legalizing the recreational use of marijuana and the issue of gay marriage coming up, not just with California's Proposition 8, but also in states like New York that have legalized gay marriage, and now the Supreme Court getting involved to try to settle how far can states go.
How ironic it is as the U.S. Congress is debating how strong should the central government be. If they looked around the 50 states, the answer has been given. Too strong. Let the states become laboratories of democracy, and maybe that's a good tension that we're looking at. Andy, we're looking forward to our lucky 13, 2013, in just a few short days. Today here at Citizen View, we've looked back, and we're giving each other a high five, looking at the top 5 lessons learned in the political arena in the year 2012. Here at Citizen View, we say Happy New Year, everybody, but don't forget the lessons learned. We're the 2 teachers.
No fancy words, no fancy suits.
Plain talk about issues you need to know.
Just in time.
I've got news for you.